This tutorial explains how to get started with powered kite loops. To clear up any confusion, I'll explain the difference between a powered kite loop and a heli loop. A heli loop is steered towards the end of a jump. After descending, your kite can fly onto your upwind side. From that position, a kite can loop at a high angle. This high angle means the force from the kite is mostly lift. A powered kite loop, by comparison, is steered earlier in a jump. Because the kite hasn't flown upwind yet, the loop will circle much lower. Because this loop circles lower, it's nearer to high power and has more kick. And the lower angle also means that there's more sideways kick and less lift. You then fly downwind and drop until you can get the kite overhead and moving quickly. Firstly, let's walk through an example powered loop. To do a powered loop, launch a jump. Before the peak of the jump, steer hard with the backhand. Keep steering until the loop is complete and the leading edge of your kite aims up towards 12. Now you must push the bar out to help the kite climb to that higher angle as quickly as possible. The kite should be back overhead well before you land. The kite should then fly onto your upwind side, so then the best way to land is with a heli loop. A heli loop is most effective when steered towards 12. In this case, the kite is slightly on the right of 12, so a heli loop with the left hand works best. Let's look more closely. Launch a jump. Importantly, you want a strong edge like this on takeoff. Before the peak of your jump, steer hard with the backhand. As soon as the loop is complete, push the bar out so the kite climbs overhead. The kite flies overhead and then upwind before landing. You can then heli loop, steering the kite towards 12 for extra lift on landing. Let's look at an example riding right foot forward. Launch a jump. It helps a lot if the kite loop starts from 12. So, as you climb, you can apply a small amount of front hand pressure to stop the kite drifting naturally towards your backhand side. Before the peak of the jump, steer hard with the backhand. Keep steering until the loop is complete and the leading edge of your kite aims up towards 12. Now you must push the bar out to help the kite climb to that higher angle as quickly as possible. The kite should be back overhead well before you land. In this case, the kiter steers the kite on purpose slightly to the right of 12 to set up for a better left-hand heli loop. Let's look more closely. Launch a jump. Importantly, you want a strong edge like this on takeoff. Before the peak of your jump, steer hard with the backhand. As soon as the loop is complete, push the bar out so the kite climbs overhead. The kite flies overhead and then upwind before landing. In this case, the kite is slightly to the left of 12, setting up for a right-hand heli loop. This trick might sound simple. However, there are several things that can spoil your powered loop, and if you get it wrong, you can easily end up in hospital. So, I strongly advise that you don't just go for a powered loop of this size. So next, I will give you several steps to building up to this. A nice warm-up is to do backhand loops while riding downwind. By first riding downwind, you won't feel the downwind pull of the loop. Raise the kite to 12, turn significantly downwind, then steer the loop. There are two key skills that you must develop at this stage. Firstly, you must make the loop as small as possible by using maximum steering. That means the bar is tilted fully and pretty much all the way in. The ideal position can vary slightly depending on your trim and so on, but this step means you're free to test that out. The second key skill is to always hold the steering until the kite aims up at 12. These skills are essential. Steering larger loops by mistake or ending loops at the wrong moment can cause kite loop disasters. Next, we do a small jump with a delayed backhand loop steered as you descend. Launch a small jump. Hold the kite at 12 for a while. Just before you land, use maximum backhand steering. Let's look more closely. This stage is your first small taste of the downwind kick of a kite loop. However, because you slightly delay that backhand loop, the kite creeps a couple of meters higher, so the loop will have a little more lift and a little less sideways acceleration. And for extra safety, your height is so low it doesn't matter much when the kite loses lift. For the next stage, we stick with the tiny jump, around 1 meter or less. But now the backhand loop is steered as you climb before the top of the jump, like this. Small jump. Brief pause with the kite at 12, then use maximum backhand steering for the loop. Let's look more closely. Steering the loop earlier means you get more downwind kick than the previous step. The point of this step is in fact to get used to a bit more downwind kick from the kite. To help your body handle the acceleration, tuck in your knees and your heels like this. How much the kite pulls will depend largely on the wind speed, so with all these training steps, first try them in lighter wind and build up. The next step is a goal, which is to use a tiny jump and see if you can complete an entire loop before landing. If you edge fairly well on takeoff, and you steer the loop firmly and your kite's not sluggish, then you can complete a loop before landing without much jump height at all. As before, try these in light wind and build up. The next step is to take that goal further. You must still use a small jump, but now you're trying to complete a loop and get the kite overhead before landing. You lose lift as the kite loops, but as the kite gets overhead, you should feel some lift returning. This feels like the kite is catching you. Let's walk through how to do a low loop and catch. Ride in with medium speed. Send the kite up fairly gently, just enough for a 1 or 2 meter jump. Push out the bar as the kite climbs and edge aggressively upwind. You should be turning about 45 degrees upwind as you take off. Just before the kite hits 12, you should be completing your upwind carve and be pulling in the bar to take off. The kite must be touching 12 as you climb. You might use a slight touch of front hand steering to stop the kite drifting over 12. Pause for a moment with your kite at 12 as this helps it fly slightly upwind, which then gives your powered loop a fraction more lift. Next, steer the loop using maximum steering. Make your body compact to handle the forces from the kite loop. Do not stop steering until the kite aims upwards. As soon as the kite aims up at 12, push the bar out to help the kite fly forwards more rapidly. Pull in the bar as you land and aim your board downwind. Because you're moving downwind with quite a lot of speed, you'll need to steer the kite firmly to one side to keep control of it. Let's look at another example. If you use good technique and you pop your jump instead of oversending the kite, you can loop and catch with jumps of just 1 or 2 meters. Because this skill is so fundamental, the next episode will troubleshoot the low loop and catch, looking at the reasons you might fail to pull it off. Smaller kites are faster, so they require less jump height in order to get them around a loop and back overhead. Here is a 12 meter squared kite loop and catch. And here is a 10 meter squared kite loop and catch. The next step is to gradually increase jump height. If you have an excellent low loop and catch, then extra jump height will simply buy you more time to complete the loop and get it back overhead, and then you should find the kite starts to fly onto your upwind side. Once the kite overflies enough, you'll benefit greatly from adding a heli loop to the landing. Once you heli loop the landing should start to get better because the kite is high and it's circling quickly. With slight overfly, you can heli as you land. With more overfly, you can heli before you land. Being confident in which side to heli loop to is crucial, since you won't get long to think about it after a powered loop. A heli is most effective when steered towards 12, so that the kite circles 12. For example, if the kite is left of 12 slightly, it's better to do the heli loop with the right hand. Or if the kite is slightly to the right of 12, it's better to do the heli loop with the left hand. At first, which side you choose to heli will be mostly reactive, but as you improve, you can plan the heli and get better results. Here, for example, after the powered loop, I send the kite straight up towards 12. Then, as it climbs, I steer it just a fraction to the right of 12 to give a nice left-hand heli loop. This skill gives consistent heli loop landings, and it can sometimes save you from a bad crash. If you can consistently do powered loops into heli loops without landing hard, then you've probably learnt the fundamentals of powered loops. From there, it's a case of gradually building up experience and extremity. You can jump gradually higher and do so in progressively stronger wind. Pretty much all the demos in this tutorial were shot in 15 to 20 knots on purpose, as that's where you can most safely learn powered loop skills. Loops in 25 knots or 30 knots are dramatically more powerful and take time to get used to. When you're ready to really increase the risk and adrenaline, you can start making the powered loops larger by steering them less firmly. The bigger the loop, the more height you'll need. You can jump higher and make the loop a fraction bigger. Eventually, you can jump much higher and make the loop significantly bigger. The risk increases sharply as you do this, primarily because more powerful loops launch you downwind so fast that you'll lose apparent wind and lift, until the kite overflies massively and slows you down again. I'll explain this apparent wind issue further in part 3. Here are a couple of final safety tips. Start in light wind and build up. If you're unsure about going for a loop on a given day, you're probably not ready. If the wind is slightly more than you're used to, you can always drop back down through the training steps. If I'm unsure about the wind, for example, I'll often start with some low height, delayed backhand loops just to start getting a feeling for the wind. Also, watch out for minor accidental rotations. If you take off with a little accidental rotation like this, it might not seem enough to be an issue. However, after the powered loop, your rotation can often increase and you start spinning. So I recommend that you first take off, check that you're upright and not rotating, and only then commit to steering the loop if everything is perfect. Learning powered loops is never risk-free and can result in some heavy impacts, but I hope this video drops the risks as much as possible for people who've decided to learn them. As mentioned, the real key to lowering risk is an excellent low loop and catch. So, the next episode will troubleshoot that in detail.